hello to all you real estate dynamos out there, and welcome back to your trusty guide through the ups and downs of this crazy business that we all just keep coming back to. This is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, and I am your Sherpa, Mike Mills, a local mortgage banker here with Geneva Financial right in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So I want you to imagine this scenario. So you just nabbed one of the last houses in a highly desirable neighborhood for your buyers after looking at 20 homes over the last few weeks. You got a great price on the home. You paired it with a great lender like me and my team. And now it's only a matter of time before that hard-earned paycheck drops into your bank account just in time for spring break vacation. But the inspector shows up and drops a 50-page novel on you and your buyers. And now you wait nervously like when you were a kid and you had to give your parents that progress report from your math teacher that we all know wasn't too complimentary of your performance. So except this isn't about you or anything that you did. This is all about that perfect house that your buyers absolutely fell in love with. And now this document reads like a fixer-upper nightmare straight out of House Hoarders. Okay. So has this ever happened to you? And if so, today's episode has got you covered. We're going to be diving headfirst into what to expect when inspecting. It's my new favorite little term I dropped out in this one today. So, but before we get into it, on how to navigate this little hurdle in the home buying journey, let's make a deal. If today's episode helps you dodge the inspection bullet like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, then give us a like and hit that subscribe button. Your support is what fuels me to do this thing each week and keeps experts showing up to help you add a little bit more knowledge to your real estate encyclopedia Britannica. And speaking of experts, my guest today has over 2 decades of real estate construction and inspection experience. He's handled more inspections than Taylor Swift has ex-boyfriends and is the owner of Siteguard Inspections right here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Nathan Ross. Howdy, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me today. I appreciate that very much.
You got it. You got it. More inspections than Taylor Swift's boyfriends, right? You like that? Is that good? Is that solid?
It is all about Taylor Swift these days.
Yes. I'm trying to stay topical and current. That's what we're trying to do. So first off, please tell me, why in the world is a home inspection report always 75 pages?
That's a good question. And
where are the 3-page ones? That's what I want to know.
well, they used to years and years ago, 20 plus years ago, there was such a thing as a 2-page, 3-page inspection report.
Okay.
There was no videos, no photos. There was no special equipment. It was literally like a carbon copy 3-pager. A home inspector would, scribble down a few notes, hand it to you, tear off the page. You keep the yellow and pink. They get the white one, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, like most professions, we've evolved, right?
Right.
And then
yes.
Nowadays, you get a home inspection, and there's a large variety of quality and standards. There's a general standards of Texas, the TREC, which is what, real estate.
So the regulations.
Regulations, so there is a minimum standard that has to be met.
Yep.
As far as what we look for, but how we document it, there's a large array of products that you'll receive from different inspectors.
Right.
So one of the things, if you get a 10-page inspection report, you think, oh, that's a good one. Well, right. I actually would completely disagree, because you do need to have some volume to your report. You need to have content, and some of it's going to be audio. Some people may do some video. There's a lot of written information in there, but you have to think you're covering your roof structure, your foundation, your HVAC system, your plumbing, electrical, appliances, not to mention cosmetics, code and safety. There's a whole ton of stuff that we're covering.
Right.
So you don't really want somebody to hand you 5 or 6 pages and say, here's your house, good luck. Yeah.
Right. Because then they really didn't do their due diligence probably, right?
Correct.
Yeah. They just kind of whipped something together and didn't give you a good report. Or, in some cases, I'm sure, I don't think this probably happens very often, but, there's probably certain situations where maybe the inspector is trying not to make it a big deal for the realtor. And so they try to keep it, as minimal as possible. And instead of just telling them, hey, look, here's the truth, here's what it is, they not on purpose, but just kind of minimize it as much as they can because they don't want to mess up the transaction.
Well, and that's true, because part of it too is, you are building relationships.
Yeah.
You're building a relationship with the buyer of the house.
Yep.
You're building a relationship with the realtor that very possibly referred you to this buyer.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll talk to you again, later down the road.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you don't want to give them, a 125-page novel either, right, that there's, several chapters and they're having to take 4 days to read through it. And because then it's like, what are we actually telling them at that point?
Right.
Is it pertinent? Is it reliable information? So I would say just kind of as an industry standard, if you get something that's in the, let's say, just 40 pages, for example, that's kind of standard for a reputable company, because also, you may not just be getting the structure. A lot of times, like, I can speak for what we do. We actually do a wood destroying insect inspection as well, which is pretty standard in Texas.
Like termite report. Yeah.
And it's a different license, but we have learned to become accustomed to getting the home inspection and the wood destroying insect inspection all in the same process. Mm-hmm. So that's going to add a few pages as well.
Right. So when an agent is looking at, well, let me ask you this in the normal process, because I don't do this much myself, so you can help me out here. But when you do an inspection, okay, usually what's the timeline usually take on a day to do an inspection on a house? Typically?
Yeah, good question. A lot of that is based on square footage and amenities.
Okay.
So if I have a 2,000 square foot house, or a 8,000 square foot house,
take a little longer.
It's going to take a lot longer, right? Because you have, instead of one air conditioner, you may have 5,
right?
So one water heater, you may have 4, those sorts of things. But I would say the general public lives at around 3,500 square feet and less. I would say that's a pretty average, easy number to throw around. So if you did about an hour for every 1,000 square feet you have, 45 minutes to an hour, something like that, including your presentation time and report writing, because it's always recommended to write your report on site. I mean, you don't technically have to, but you want to capture the information while it's live and relevant.
Yeah. And it's fresh in your mind too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So you don't leave any gaps. Right. Yeah. So like for us, I would say about 3.5 hours from start to finish, including the presentation. Okay. Is fairly standard.
Okay. Well, that's not bad. I mean, I've heard them taking 5 and 6 hours before, so that's not bad at all.
And we've had them, or if it's a commercial structure, or if it's, like I said, if it's at 8,000 square foot, very mansion, we'll say, right?
Yeah.
Then of course you're going to be there for a considerable amount of time. But generally speaking, you can have one in the morning or in an afternoon,
And I imagine they have you guys have software now too that probably makes the reporting of it much easier, because you can take like an iPad or something out and just kind of punch it all in versus having to sit in your truck for 2 hours and write out a dissertation, right?
Absolutely. And there's several different programs of software that most inspectors use. Yeah. I would say there's 3 or 4 in general, that in Texas anyway, there's 3 or 4 in general that are the most common, because they're the easiest to work with. Mm-hmm. But most people will have either a laptop, or like we use like a tablet, like an iPad, or a Surface Pro, something like that. Okay. And you carry that around with you, and you're actually taking your pictures and implementing it and downloading it into the report in real time.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's really all set and put together. Once you're done putting in your data, then it's ready to go.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So you show up, we do the inspection, you've got your trusty little iPad, you filled it all in, you got it ready to go. So how do you guys, is it something where and you can speak to what you guys do. Do you all present it to the client and the agent together, or is the agent usually there, or are they not there, or is it just to the buyer? Because obviously the buyer is the one purchasing it from you. So it's their inspection. But what's the how's the presentation usually work on what you're showing them, what you go through?
Yeah, we invite anybody to the presentation. So from my perspective, the more the merrier, because again, if you read something on a page, you'll receive the information, but you may not understand the context,
how to interpret it. Right.
Exactly. So if you're there on site, we can discuss it together. And if need be, I can actually take you over to that water heater, that wall, or that bathroom, or what have you. As far as realtors coming to the inspection, absolutely. If they want to come, we welcome them every time.
Right.
That one can be a little tricky though, because a realtor typically will work with a brokerage.
Sure.
And those brokerage have their own rules and requirements and regulations. Some of the brokerages recommend for the realtor to not be there.
Really? Okay. Is there a reason why?
It can be a little bit of a liability that you have to juggle. Nothing super scary. It's just if
they don't want any undue influence, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're not the licensed inspector, but you're on site and you're giving an opinion, well, you're kind of inserting yourself into that. Right. And that could possibly, lead to some negative press, we'll say, downstream. Yeah. So it's either you want to kind of be quiet during the presentation and let the licensed inspector give that presentation. Right. Or what some realtors might prefer is have the buyer present, right? So the inspector and buyer can have their time. Mm-hmm. And then the inspection report gets emailed over directly. And like for us, we always ask, because the person that buys the inspection is actually the one that owns the information. Right. So typically that would be the home buyer, of course. Right. Yeah. But sometimes it could be somebody else. Sure. But we always ask the home buyer, we're going to email this to you, and is it okay if we send it also to your realtor, because they need to help you. They need that information.
Yeah.
Because presumably after the home inspection, during the rest of that option period, they might want to talk about some of the deficiencies and may want to work towards a possible repair amendment or things to talk to the seller about.
Something that you need to negotiate with the seller. So you need to kind of be aware of what's in there.
Absolutely.
Sure. Right.
Absolutely.
So, so it's more often now, what do you find as far as like, what's more common? Do you have agents? Is it 50-50? Do you have agents there often or not? Or
I will say
from your perspective, what's
7-8 years ago. So I've been doing this about 14 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around it for, my whole life. I've got family that's in real estate. And in fact, my mom's been a realtor for, 30 some years, I think.
Okay.
So I've kind of been familiar with it for a long time, but in the 14 years that I've been actually a licensed home inspector, it's evolved. Used to, the realtor would meet you there and the buyer would meet you there on property when, let's say the inspection starts at 9 o'clock, everybody's there at 9:01. Right. And you have 3 hours of home inspection with everybody.
Yeah.
Well, over the years, and especially more since COVID has happened, realtors don't go as often, and buyers, most of the time buyers will be there, but I would say it's probably about 80-20 on the buyers and maybe a 50-50 on realtors.
Okay.
And part of that is because we're all so busy these days.
Yeah.
And everybody's just running as fast as they can to try to get the objectives met.
Right.
And then part of that also is, again, a realtor may have a strategy to how they want to implement those steps through the option period.
Right.
And so they're working their business plan on that.
Right. So it ultimately just varies. It just depends on the agent and what they want to do with it. All right. So you've given the inspection to the buyers, you've gone through your presentation with them and, kind of walk through what are some, from your point of view, doing these every day, what are the things that they need to pay attention to, like, hey, this stuff's important. And then what are some of the stuff that's like kind of always there, but isn't maybe that big of a deal? Like I remember I always just use an example when I talk to people about this, that I had bought a house one time and they were talking about how there was a whole section about how the bushes in the front of the house were too close to the house and needed to be trimmed back. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I mean, there was like literally like a whole page about different parts of the bushes and trees and stuff. And it was like, all right, I mean, I get it, but I'm not going to mess with it. There's not going to be a reason I'm not going to buy this house. So like from your point of view, what are some things that are kind of important? And I wouldn't even say red flags, but just you need to pay attention to this section versus the ones where like, hey, this is in there because we have to put it in there because we have to do our job.
Well, there's part of that is the threshold of the buyer.
Okay.
Are you a first-time home buyer?
Right.
Is this your 5th house that you purchased?
Right.
Because then your knowledge level is going to be very different on that as well.
Right.
Generally speaking, though, there's I would say kind of your big 6 items.
Okay.
So the roof covering, because we don't want water to get into the structure.
That's right.
Your foundation, because we want our house to be on solid footing.
Yep.
The HVAC system.
Okay.
And because we are in Texas, so a working air conditioner is very important.
Very nice. Yes.
Water heater, because that's the distribution system in which you're going to get hot water to your faucets. The electrical panel box area, so that's the hub of where all your plugs and switches and everything. All of them, the common denominator is your panel box. And then you're going to have your appliances.
Okay.
And not so much from an integrity standpoint, but just from a monetary and functionality standpoint.
Right.
When you move into day one, you want to be able to wash that dish. You want to be able to cook your plate of food.
Yeah.
So those items are typically the ones that would say, let's focus on these. Mm-hmm. Other things like the cosmetics, not too important.
Right.
I mean, not that they're not important.
Well, it depends on the individual, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
up to them for sure. Yeah.
But it may not hinder the ability of the house to function. It may not hinder the ability of the loan to move forward. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's kind of 2 battlefronts that you want to protect on that. And
right.
Again, it's your monetary nuisance, something that's a safety item, of course. Right. And then is any of the findings potentially standing in the way of that loan moving forward?
Right. Something that the lender might find or have an issue with. Yeah. Well, I mean, even really in our space for lending, we don't ask for the inspections. I mean, it's not something that we require, so we're not looking for that. Now the appraiser goes out obviously, and they're not doing a home inspection, of course, but they are certainly going to walk through and test the faucets and test the appliances and see if there's any cracks on the wall and all that kind of stuff. So they're usually the ones that kind of notify us if there's any potential issues with the property. But they don't even give appraisers typically aren't going to give their opinion. They're just going to say, hey, this needs to be checked out or repaired or whatever. And then, when we get to say VA loans,
Mhm,
right? VA loans, we do need the wood destroying insect report
absolutely.
to show that there isn't any infestation, if there's anything that needs to be fixed on that side of things. But outside of that, from a lender side, like, we typically don't have a ton to do with the inspection on our end. But I do know that, especially with first time home buyers, because this is where it always comes into the whole, you know, not freaking out, but just certainly getting this big document and going, oh my
Sure,
gosh, like
sure.
this house is horrible. And it's like, well, hang on. I want you to talk about how there, we talked about it in the beginning a little bit, but you have to give everything that's wrong with the house,
That's
right?
right.
Like your
That's right.
job in order to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and doing what the buyer's paid you to do is to tell you every single thing that's deficient in the home, right?
That's correct. So there's, we're going to do code items,
Yeah.
safety items, structural integrity items,
Right.
cosmetics,
Right.
and so we do have to tell you everything. Now, there is a little bit of a misconception. Sometimes people think, oh, well, an inspection will cover everything about everything.
Right.
That's not really true.
You're not perfect. You're some stuff.
Well, there's things that, because we are uh, regulated by TREC, so there's a minimum standard
Oh,
that
I
have
see
to
what
be
you're saying.
met.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So you'd like to think that most companies would go above the minimum,
Yeah. Well,
but
companies and people,
sometimes
Yeah.
they're just reaching to the minimum. But
Right.
that's where the legal threshold is met,
but
is
they're
at
required.
that point.
Yep.
But there's something like, let's see, a fence,
Okay.
a wood fence around the perimeter, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that it's in good shape and so on. But that's not actually required to be on a general home inspection.
Okay.
Now, a home inspector can note on about it, but they don't have to.
Gotcha.
There's also, well, what's flooring? There's a good one. So, as a home buyer, you and I go in, if we see carpet that's damaged, well, we're absolutely going to talk about that,
Sure.
and we want to address that with the seller.
Yeah.
But did you know in the state of Texas, it is not a requirement for a home inspector to address that stained carpet. The only time that a home inspector has to actually talk about the flooring is if it is some way connected to the foundation performance.
Gotcha.
So
Like a
there's
safety thing, maybe.
well, let's say there's a used tile, right? Because
Right.
nice, pretty tile floor, and there's this big old crack that's going across the bottom of the tile
Right.
floor. Well, is that crack just cosmetic? In which case, it's not really a requirement. Now again, home buyers expect it. So, like at Siteguard, we do comment on flooring.
Right.
regardless.
Right. Just be like, what? I didn't see a crack. What crack are you talking about?
Yeah. So we do comment on
Yeah.
it, but because our customer base has grown to expect that.
Yeah.
But I mean, from a legal perspective, though,
Yeah.
that crack was not related to the foundation in any way.
Right.
So if the inspector did not comment on that, it's not that they forgot or overlooked
Right.
it. It's that they weren't required to.
They just didn't have to.
Yeah.
Well, no, that makes sense. I mean, so one of the biggest concerns for realtors, especially, is when these home inspections, come out, is what is the buyer's reaction going to be,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And often, and I find this occasionally, but I will see where they will say, or well, really, they won't say anything. It's kind of like, what I was talking about before with the parents, progress report. You're just like crossing your fingers and hope it's okay. And just like anything, I don't think that that's the best approach. I mean, obviously, you want to address these things head on, and you want to make sure that you prepare, your clients for what's coming. So, if you were a realtor, and your mom is, and I'm sure you've had these conversations, what would you recommend as far as the process of preparing a buyer for a home inspection, whether it be what you talk to them about beforehand, what you talk to them about once they get the inspection, and then, what you would say once the inspection is complete, and, here's what we need to look at and move forward with. So, and again, this is just your point of view, not, you're not a realtor, obviously, but if you were helping a realtor say, hey, look, these are the things you need to talk to your buyer about beforehand so they understand what they're reading and what they're going into, because it's all about setting expectations, right?
Sure.
What we're trying to do, my job, realtor's job, your job with your clients, is we're trying to set the proper expectations so that way when we present the information that we're presenting, that it's digested properly. So what would you suggest, for agents in how they would communicate with their buyers about that?
I definitely think that setting a realistic expectation is important.
Yeah.
And when any house,
Right.
whether it's a new construction house or something that's been around for 50 years,
Right.
Perfection does not exist.
Right.
Especially in new construction, which we can talk about that in a minute. But there needs to be an expectation that the inspector is going to judge it on the most current revision of the building code.
Mhm.
Okay. But if it's a 40-year-old house, some of these deficiencies doesn't make it bad, doesn't mean that it's failing. It just means that it was okay when the house was built.
Yeah.
But fast forward, because we change building code every 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So, you've had, what, 10, 12, 13 cycles of this building code changing. One of the things that I hear all the time is, like GFCI receptacles, which are the little ones with the reset buttons you see in your garage or bathrooms, whatever. Just about every house is not up to code in that, it seems like. And because, the building code has become more and more stringent, and it was just the garage, then it was the garage walls and then the ceiling. And then, the bathrooms, well, now the bathrooms and the laundry room. And it just kind of keeps expanding. And the whole point of it is to be more safe and to build a better product. But again, if you're thinking, you see these in the report, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to, totally replace this. No, that's not the case. It's those receptacles or the wall outlets, they're functioning, they're fine. They're just, and they were up to code back on that day, just not today. So part of it is just communicating, educating, and realizing, is it a first time home buyer? Because you're probably going to want to spend a little bit more time just talking with them, showing them hands-on a few things, giving them resources, and part of it too is like for us, we do the inspection. So we're here this morning, we do the inspection, come noon, we're done. We're going to email you the report. Our interaction with you does not stop or let me phrase that. It will continue if you want it to.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we're not going to just, okay, thanks for your time. See you later.
Yeah. Adios. Yeah.
We have a website that has resources on there. So if you do need an electrician, or if you do need a HVAC system or a painter or sprinkler guy or whoever it may be, you can just go to the website, you pick who you need, and then they're all local and they can help you. Or 6 months from now, you're like, I don't remember what you said about that, and give me a call. We're going to be there to help you, and we're not there to push the realtor in any direction. We're there to be a supportive team member. And we're going to all approach this together, right? They have their function, I have mine, the buyer has theirs, and we're going to all lock arms and we're going to walk to the finish line together. And I think if you approach it as this is a team effort, and that you're not there to scare them, you're there to just give them some information. We're not going to report any more or any less. It's just going to be kind of is what it is, right? We're going to the facts, nothing but the facts. And how they digest them. Sometimes you can talk, when you're talking to them, you can kind of see, that you could just kind of tell it kind of concerned them a little bit.
Yeah.
So then we'll back up. We'll start talking to them a little bit more about that. And we'll say, however, and we kind of put it in context and help them understand the theory behind it and the process. And then if they want to continue to have the conversation, then again, we can get those resources whenever they need.
Well, often I think it's, I use this analogy when I do loans all the time is, I tell people, look, my job is to give you the information as it is, and then let you make the adult decision on what you want to do with that information.
That's right.
I'm not here to guide or push you in one direction or the other. I mean, I'll give opinions if you want my opinion. I'll tell you, well, this is how I do it, or this is how other people have done it. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. It's your decision how you want to, if you want to move forward, if you don't, if you think this is a problem, if you don't, that's it. And we often say too, with homes in general, it's like, look, you can't fix the location, right? Wherever the house is, there's nothing you can do about that.
That's right. You can't move the house.
Right. And once you pay for it, you paid what you paid for it. But outside of that, a lot of things can be changed, fixed, moved, done. You're not going to re-gut a whole house most of the time, but little things can always be fixed. And then it just comes down to like, how much do you really love this house? Right. If you can look past some of these little deficiencies that you have, then it's going to be a great decision, because like you said, no house is perfect. There's never going to be a house that's perfect. And speaking of that, because I do want to get into a few specifics on each section a little bit, so that way we can tell people, hey, if you're looking at roofs, here's something that you're going to see often. Here's what's a big deal. Here's not. But before that, I want to talk about new builds, because you brought it up. So these days, especially, the market is dominated by new builds. It's just what it is, because that's the inventory that's available.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think if you go back, 20 or so years, you could maybe say, the inspection isn't as big on new builds because they're good quality, and maybe not. I mean, maybe I'm living in good old days, but especially these days, because cost of building is so expensive, labor is expensive. These home builders are now these huge conglomerates. They're not just like, Joe's home builder that, is going to stamp his name on this property and it's his word. Now it's, DR Horton, who's one of the biggest companies in the world, that kind of thing. So what are you seeing? Well, first off, I want you to talk about why it's still important to get a home inspection on a new build. And then second off, am I crazy? Are you seeing the construction still the same and things are good, other than a few one-offs here and there? Or are you starting to see a little bit of a deterioration, and it becomes even more pertinent these days to get the inspection done?
All of that's a very good question. So there has definitely been an influx over the last few years of new construction homes.
Yes.
And I would say just from 10 years ago to 5 years ago, there was some, and then from 5 to 2. And then over this last 2 years again,
Dramatic.
it's seen just a dramatic increase
Yeah.
of new construction. And there's a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
But there's been more of those on the market.
Yes.
And builders are doing everything from, you introduce yourself in the beginning, and then you have a pre-pour into a foundation, which we can actually inspect all of that too. And,
Great.
whether it's a pre-pour to the foundation, the framing is the next step. Or what we call the blue tape walkthrough, or the final, which is right before you move in,
Right.
and then the 1-year warranty also. So there's different steps in which you can inspect those. Or sometimes you get a spec home, which
Yep.
means the builders basically
It's already done.
constructed a bunch of houses,
Yeah.
and they're selling them, in that final phase, right? And that's a lot of them are getting that way too.
Mhm.
But absolutely, new does not mean perfect.
Right.
In fact, quite the opposite.
Yes.
I was just talking to my wife the other day, and we were just kind of hypothetical games, right? And
Sure.
saying, okay, if I have 2 houses, one's a 30-year-old house and a single homeowner, he's lived there, he built it and has lived there for 30 years. Or you have this other house that's brand new, no one's ever lived in it. I'm buying one of those houses, and I can only get one inspection. Now, obviously, you want to inspect both, right?
Right.
But just hypothetically,
Yeah.
I can only get one inspection.
Yeah.
I'm getting that inspection on the new construction house.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Because one, it's made by humans. We make errors, of course. Builders, no matter how great they are, no matter how reputable they are, they have, they're buying in bulk.
Yeah.
Have building construction quotas.
Yeah.
The quicker they can get that house constructed and off their books, the quicker they get their bonus structure.
Yeah.
Okay. And that does not always lend itself towards quality. But then I hear in the back of my mind, I hear somebody say, well, they have a QA person, which quality assurance person, they have a QA person that's going to look over that structure. They do. That's working on behalf of the builder.
Yep.
Not the buyer. And then say, well, we're going to have a city inspector look at it. Okay. City inspectors are great in the field that they work.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, like with a city inspection, let's say they've got a list of 200, 300 things they have to look at.
Yeah.
If it meets the minimum standards, not the maximum, but the minimum, if it meets the minimum standards, you get a green tag, builder can keep building. Right. If it doesn't meet minimum, then you get a red tag, they have to stop, fix the problem, right? Well, a third-party home inspector isn't looking at hundreds of items. They're looking at 2,000 or 3,000 different items, right? We're ensuring it against the most current code and safety regulations. Also, let's say you're building a house and you have it in the city, like the city proper, a city center, right? The codes are going to be more strict. Or you have that same house, same builder, but you're 50 miles out. You're kind of on city limits, or what would you call like country land,
right? Yeah. A little rural.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the building codes become much more relaxed.
Yes.
And so the builders become much more relaxed.
Yes.
And just to here's a couple funny things. When new construction house, we've had, in fact, I'll give you 2 quick examples.
Yeah, please.
And again, these are new construction houses. We thought that they were, they were a reputable big box store that everyone's heard of. I'm not going to put their name here.
No,
but
don't have to put a name out.
But they're the ones that we would go to and buy.
Right.
Okay. One of them, it was like a condo, 3-story condo. There's like 10 or 12 units stacked in a row, right? So the washer and dryer was going to be in a closet area, and a stackable washer and dryer.
Okay.
So for space
condo,
purposes.
yeah.
So we go in there, looks great. Closet looks good, nice pretty paint, got some, everything looks right, got their water connections, all that. And then quickly realized there was no dryer vent. Like the hole where the lint goes.
Yeah.
There's no dryer vent, no hole. There's no hole in the wall at all. There's nowhere for that lint to go. And we're like, well, then start looking around a little bit closer and realize there was no 240 volt outlet either. Because the dryer's 240 volt, right? So you have to plug it in to get power.
Yeah.
And then you have to take the lint somewhere. Neither of those were there. The house was complete. The city inspector signed off on it. The builder's QA person signed off on it. The builder signed off on it.
Wow.
The homeowner already had their blue tape walkthrough. They were moving in a few days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was done. We were just doing our due diligence because to the realtor's credit, this buyer would have never got the home inspection, but the realtor was like, you probably just want somebody on your side.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to look at it. And if everything's great, well, now you spent money to know that everything's great.
Right.
Peace of mind. Right. and they had to fix it. Another quick one. New construction is actually
that's not an easy fix, by the way, too, depending on where that wall was. I mean, the electricity probably not a big deal, but the vent, I mean, if you're not on an outer wall, that you can just kick out. Cause I mean, I could be wrong, but most of those vents have, an exit point to the outside.
And it has to be within a certain amount of linear feet too.
Right.
So like say the overall vent has to be within 30 feet from start to stop.
Right.
So you have to get all of that completed within 30 feet and still make it outside.
Wow.
And we had another one, beautiful house. Going through, there was a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage going through. And I realized that I keep going in and out. Like I'm checking the bedroom and I'm going out the front door, checking the back room, going out the front door. And I just keep all my in and outs. I kept going down the hallway to the front door and I realized I keep going out the front door. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then I realized there was no back door. There was no doorway, no opening, no door. That door never exists.
This is a single family home?
Single family home.
With a backyard.
Because you build a backyard and you have to have 2 points of egress, right? Or reasons or ways to leave the house.
Yeah.
So if it's, if there's an emergency on this side, you can go out the other side.
Right.
Or vice versa. There was no rear exit to the home. None.
What? They forgot the back door?
The city inspector signed off on it. The builder signed off on it. And this was 2 days before closing. They just so happened, they're like, I'm going to get my inspection. It's kind of last minute because them and the builder were sort of just kind of at odds with a couple of things.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the door. It was just, other kind of cosmetic stuff,
Sure.
And while I was there, nobody realized that the builder never put a rear entry on the home. So they end up having to cut a hole, a doorway in the back of the house and putting a way to exit the home. The craziest stuff. But when you walk past it, it looked perfect. It looked clean because it didn't look like there was anything wrong with it.
It's crazy with stuff like that because that seems like everybody's like, what? How would you miss a back door? But, but if you're, it happens all the time with homeowners, like on pre-existing homes, not even just, new builds, but when you go into a house, there's certain things that people are looking for, right? There's certain things that they are interested in. They're interested in something with the kitchen, or they're interested in the master bedroom or whatever, right? They have certain things in their mind that they're paying attention to, which is why a lot of times it's good. I know realtors will hate this, but the reason a lot of times people bring other people with them is because we all live in this little,
live in a bubble.
Yeah, we all live in our own little world. And sometimes we need somebody else there with us to just be like, hey, did you notice that, there's a hole in the wall over here? You're like, or there's no refrigerator space in here. You're like, what? It's because you're just not thinking about it, right? It's just not in your scope or your radar of what you're paying attention to. And I think that, that happens to all of us. Now you would think on major stuff, you would notice stuff like that, but
you would think, but if it's not, it's easy to see the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to see the thing that's rusted or the thing that's bent or damaged. But if it's been completely omit,
it's just not there.
It's just not there.
Yeah.
You're not looking for it because it's not there.
No. It's like realizing there's no fireplace or something. It's like, did you know this place doesn't have a fireplace? You're like, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess not. It's just, you just don't, and if you're not looking for it, you just don't think about it.
Or the water line for the fridge, that's something that I see a lot of times the builder will forget, to put the water line. Yeah. It's just a nice, pretty wall.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, everybody expects to have water nice in the door.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think it's even, when you could say, oh, well, the inspector should have caught that, or the builder, Q&A, or, the quality assurance guy should have caught that as well. And that's all true, but we're all human beings,
that's
right? Everybody's a human, and we're going to make mistakes. So if you're a building inspector, by the way, and this is your job every day, is to go out to these houses and commercial buildings and all this stuff and make note of what it is. There's a lot of things I think you just assume in your head, it's not that you're not looking for it, but you're just thinking in your mind, there's the washer and dryer. It's good. I don't need to check. You're not even consciously going, I don't need to check, see if it's got a return line on the hose. It just, they all do. So I'm sure it's, and again, you're not thinking about it. You're just like washer and dryer or, dishwasher good, works, it's functioning. Okay, fine. And you move on because it's just what you do.
That's right. You get on an autopilot type thing. And especially, and I don't mean to dig on the QA of the builder because they're great and they catch a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great ones, I'm sure, out there, but they're human beings.
They are working on the behalf of the builder. So if they're going to give leniency, they're going to give it to the builder.
Right.
So just by very nature, they're a little bit favored on that side.
Yeah.
And then the monotony of just going through the, how many houses a day do they look at?
Look at them all day long.
Builders making a subdivision that has 250 units.
Yep.
So they're just going from as fast as they can from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So you get a home inspector that's on your side. They're going to take, 3-4 hours or whatever the time is. And they're going to be digging and looking for you, the home buyer. They're working solely for your benefit. And they're not selling you anything. No, and that's a great.
Well, they've already sold you. You bought it. You paid the fee for it. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. We're not. There's certain trades out there that hey, we'll give you this. I'll leave the name of the trades out. Sure. There's just certain trades out there that they'll say, we'll come and do the inspection on this part of your home for free. Yeah. But what they're really hoping is that they can sell you that new part of your home, right? Right. Of whichever part that may be. Yes. Yes. And again, a third-party inspector, they're not really selling you anything. No. They're giving you information. Hopefully you digest it well and it suits you well. Yeah. And then you take with the inspector and the realtor, mostly the realtor after the inspection. Yeah. And they walk you through those next steps after that and help you get to that finish line. Well, and I just don't think, in most cases, we want to pretend like that there's some kind of like evil, they're like, oh, they're trying to screw us or, whatever. And I'm sure that has happened for sure. I mean, it's life, but I think most of the time it's just human error. That's right. Is. And by the way, when you're talking about the amount of people involved in building a house, from the framers to the electricians, to their workers, to their office people ordering supplies, to the Q&A. I mean, there's just so many people that when you have that many people involved in any process, that's right, people are going to make mistakes. And sometimes they're big mistakes and sometimes they're small mistakes, but they're going to mess up. That's right. And you just need to have somebody there that's going, and they're not going, hey, this person's terrible. You shouldn't. No. We're just saying, hey, look, we're just making sure that everything was done the way it should have been done. And if it wasn't, then we're just going to say, hey, look, this needs to be fixed. And I mean, how often do they not come in and fix it? Usually they're going to come in and fix it, right? Well, and with new construction, well, first I would say if you have a home inspector that is causing alarm or being scary, you got the wrong home inspector. Right. So you want to have somebody that just kind of, what do you call it? The nice bedside manner. Yeah. You want to be you want to be a calm voice, and that you're just a reasonable, logical voice, and that you're not raising a bunch of drama. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. But on a new construction, it's a little different than an existing house, because new construction, you're going to presumably, of course, run this through your realtor first because of the plan of action may be different. But you might give that entire report to the builder and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Builder, before I accept ownership, I want these things addressed. Yeah. Because most of those products anyway are under warranty. Right. Because and most builders will give you what's called a 1-2-10 warranty, meaning 1 year bumper to bumper, 2 years on the mechanical. So lights, microwaves, that kind of stuff. Sure. And then 10 on the structure, like foundation. Right. So they are protected by this warranty process. You just have to go through the process. Right. And you give them these items. And I would say, let's say we give the builder, oh, by the way, I've never, in 14 years, not once come across any house, much less a new construction house, that was perfect, was good to go, like clean bill of health. There's always a handful of things. Yeah. Not all of them are earth shattering. Some of them are just, oh, hey, catch that before you move in. Right. But there's always some things, right? But yeah, go to the builder, and most builders will probably fix 9 out of 10 of those, if not 10 out of 10 of those, before the buyer moves in. And the buyer says, well, we're moving in 4 days. There's how in the world are they going to fix, these 20 pages or whatever it is in 4 days? Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. The builder can get their crews out pretty quick and handle that. They want to close the loan. They do. They want to close the deal. They're not trying to drag it out. And also the buyer has more power before the loan closes than after. Yes. So not that I would ever recommend this. And again, run this through your realtor first. Yes. Like that's my standard disclaimer, right? Yeah, always. But if they had to, let's say closing was on Wednesday, and if they had to close on Thursday instead of Wednesday, but that way it would ensure that those products got corrected first. That is an option. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no different. That's like a final walkthrough, right? I mean, if the whole point of realtors on any property doing a final walkthrough is to say, before this thing actually closes in funds, we need to make sure that there's no problem. That's right. Because we're in a better bargaining position right now before it funds and closes than we are after. Always. Yeah. It's who holds the leverage, right? Yes. Yeah. Now they can give you a IOU, and they literally will give you this. It's a piece of paper, and it's like, I actually think it says IOU on it. Yeah. And they write down, okay, we got items A, B, and C that are going to get to you after close. Sometimes they have to do that, and it works, if you have to. But again, if you really can, if the time will allow you, then try to get those things corrected before you close. Right. And then if it's An existing house, a little bit different. You don't just hand the inspection report to the builder to the homeowner, excuse me. This is really where the realtor's business strategy is going to come in and really help you. So if you're a seasoned realtor, you may just have this process streamlined,
right?
But you might negotiate. If there's a handful of items on that inspection report that you want to address, you can ask for all of them, or sometimes they'll say, hey, let's have a few bucks instead of calling the plumber out to fix the thing.
Yes.
Or we really want 5 things, but we're going to ask for 7,
right?
So that they really end up with 5, and in all actuality, they may end up with 3,
right?
And it's sort of this
it's a negotiation of what you're trying to do.
So you do have a little bit more negotiation on that existing house. But another thing too, and a lot of companies, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a few companies. We are one of them that can offer a product called a re-inspection.
Okay.
So let's say you go, whether it's new construction or
whatever,
existing, you have your inspection, paid for it, it's done. We decided, okay, there's these things, whatever they are, that need to be addressed. Builder, homeowner, whoever says, okay, yeah, I'll fix them. Okay, they're fixed. But did they?
Right.
How well are they fixed?
Yeah.
So we go back out and we do a re-inspection on those items, and we give you another report.
Okay.
So it's not just, okay, yeah, it's fixed. I mean, you have another written report.
Right.
And you could say, well, there was 6 things on this list, but 4 of them they're performing. They look real good.
Yeah.
But these other 2 or 3 things, back to the drawing board.
Yes.
And then you just slow walk it into the corrective measures, right? And it keeps the temperature down a little bit too, because those negotiations can be a little bit heated on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's just the facts. It's
just third party said, here, this is what we saw.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it helps everybody, and it really does streamline that process.
Well, I mean, that's great, because I always recommend, whenever they ask me, because I get asked all the time too, it's like, look, get the money rather than having them fix it.
Sure.
If it's something that if it's not, if it doesn't cause an issue with the loan, obviously.
It's because the sellers are going to get out. They're going to do the
cheapest way they can
just to get the house out of their name.
Exactly. Right. But sometimes it does become a bit of a I don't want to say a bit of contention between the buyer and the sellers about who's going to do the work. And it's like, okay, well, if you absolutely don't want to give us 5,000, 10,000 or whatever it is, and you want to do the work yourself, fine. But we're going to have someone come out and doing another inspection afterwards.
That's right.
And make sure that the work was done correctly. So if you're okay with that, then sure, we can go forward with that decision as well.
And that happens quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. And then you could probably even negotiate. And since you're doing it that way, you're going to pay the inspector to come do that, because
there you go.
Because it's like, we're asking you to just give us the funds, but if you're not going to do that and you want to fix it yourself, that's fine. But you're going to pay to make sure that it gets done correctly with our company, not with the company that you choose, but with the one that we choose.
That's right.
And I think, again, it's all about, like you said, it's all about how your agent and the buyer approach the conversation with the sellers on how to handle those things when they come up, because they're going to come up. Every single house, every single property, every single situation, almost to a T, there's going to be something in the house that's deficient.
Always,
right?
Always.
And then it's just a matter of if you're okay with it, or if you're not, or if you want to negotiate repairs, or if you don't. But I also think that, in most cases, everything's always negotiable. And that's the problem, I think, that happens, that I see a lot with new agents, is they get the house, they get it under contract, the inspector comes out, gives a pretty standard inspection, because I've seen some of them before. A few little things here or there that aren't great about it, but they get a typical inspection, and then the buyer's like, nope, I'm backing out. And the agent, because they don't want to seem pushy, or they don't want to seem like they're, trying to talk them into something, which I totally understand. But then they're just like, well, they just decided against it. And it's like, well, did you have a conversation with them about it though? Like, did you explain the stuff that was deficient? Because these seem like pretty small things that could easily be fixed if this was the house. Now, if this wasn't the house, if this was like, we kind of like it, but not a big deal, great, go find another one.
Yeah.
But if this was the house and they were like, man, we just loved it, but the roof needed repair, it's like, well, you can fix that. That's not a big deal.
The funny thing with roofs that you mentioned that is, because that's one of the big 6 items.
Yeah, it's always, yeah.
So it's like, is my roof performing?
Yeah.
Right. But that can actually be a blessing, because let's say we go out there and there's impact damage, some damaged shingles, there's enough deficiencies that we would recommend to have further evaluation on it. Right. So that process goes through, and the realtor says, okay, we're going to get our favorite roofing company out here. They're going to go take a look at it. And they agree, yes, there is impact damage in any roof. Okay. Well, a lot of times, now this isn't every time, but
Sure.
a lot of times the roof can be claimed on insurance.
Yes.
So the seller actually claims it on their insurance
Yep.
before they leave the property. Then the buyer ends up getting a brand new roof, didn't pay a dime, or maybe they're still negotiated. Sometimes they'll negotiate because you've got a, what do you call it? The deductible or the copay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be a little bit of negotiation of, hey, there's $1,000 copay. Okay.
Yeah.
Who pays that? Well, we'll 50-50 it. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But so for $500, you got a $15,000 roof for free.
Yes.
Now you don't have to worry about it for 15 years, 20 years, or however long it is.
Well, and your insurance is way cheaper now.
And your
too.
insurance just went down. So it's a
Yes.
huge blessing. So just because there's a deficiency, don't get so sidetracked or focused on the deficiency itself,
Yeah.
because almost always there's a plan of action that either the inspector, the realtor, that the professionals, these are deficiencies we see all the time.
Right.
So we have people that's kind of waiting in the wings that can help.
Yeah.
Or maybe the buyer's dad is an HVAC technician.
Right.
So for client A, air conditioner is scary.
Right.
But for client B, dad says, I'll be over there on Sunday and I'll fix it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
there's a lot of variables here, and the information can appear to be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of step back a little bit and just really try to look into that information and use the resources from a buyer's perspective.
Yeah.
If you use the resources you have available, you have a mortgage professional that's going to help you walk through the financials. You have the real estate agent that's going to help you with the strategies of how to connect all the dots.
Yeah.
You have the inspector that's here to work solely on your benefit.
Right.
So use us. We are here to help you. That's our sole reason for our professionals, to help you, educate you, and get you where you need to be, and one step closer to being a homeowner.
Yeah. So, okay. So of those big six, cause we just talked about the roof actually, about, and that's a common thing. And I've had roofers on before, that we've gone through that on how all that works. So roof, if you have roof issues, there's remedies there, like you showed. So talk about, like,
just to be fair, sometimes you can just fix the roof. You don't always have to replace it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You get up there with a handful of shingles and some nails and repair becomes less scary.
Yes.
So just quantifying that.
And you don't have to do that. You can pay somebody to do that. So talk about the other of the big six, the HVAC, you said the appliances, you said the electrical system. I'm seeing if I was paying attention really well. What were the other two?
Water heater and foundation.
There we go. I don't know how I forgot about foundation, especially in Texas. So start with, let's start with
foundation.
Foundation. Yeah.
Foundation, because that's, I would say roof and foundation are the two, roof, foundation, HVAC probably are like the three
big ones
that we talk about all the time.
Right.
Foundation, because, we live in North Texas.
Yep.
And in this part of North Texas, we have a lot of clay soil.
Yes.
So there's a lot of expansion and contraction that happens.
Yep.
So the house is always moving and shifting.
Yep.
Just because you see a crack in the wall does not mean that your foundation's bad.
Right.
I need to preface that.
Yes.
Just because you see a crack in the wall does not mean you have a poorly performing foundation. Right. In fact, a lot of cracks are quite normal.
Yes. Yes.
And there's some that are vertical. That means one thing. If they're horizontal, it means another. Diagonal. But just because most people think the diagonal stair step cracks.
Yeah.
Those are like, oh, I got foundation problems. Well, it means your foundation moved. I mean, that's true. But there's tolerances, there's, how much did it move? Is it still within acceptable tolerance, or am I receiving adverse performance? Well, with your naked eye, it's just, Johnny Homebuyer, you're not going to know.
Right.
Most of the time, a visual inspection through a licensed inspector, they can tell you visually, okay, you've had movement and it's exceeding what we think is probably acceptable tolerances. But to be fair, an inspector cannot legally say, your foundation's not performing. You need 3 piers right there. That is not what we do.
No. Your job is to recommend they have somebody look at that specifically.
That's right. It's like a general practitioner. We check you out. Yes, you do have a broken bone. Yes, it is your femur.
Go see an orthopedist.
Yes, and they'll put a cast on it.
Right.
So it's kind of that same process.
Yes.
But one thing that we can do, like let's say we take that house we're talking about, and there's some stair step cracks, and there's we're thinking, man, there could be some adverse performance here. It's possible. We're seeing quite a few of these cracks, window, and it's not just cracks, is your windows, are they opening and closing properly? Does your doors open and close properly? There's a whole bunch of symptoms, we'll say. And how many of these symptoms do you have? Do you have this 100-year-old tree that's growing into the side of your foundation? That could cause a little movement, right?
Yeah.
But like at our company, we actually go one step further. I mean, all that's required, to be fair to everybody out there, all that's required is to do a visual inspection for your general home inspection. Okay. But if you do have the qualifications, you can do what's called a foundation elevation survey. Okay. So you use a piece of equipment. There's several different out there, but we use what's called a precision altimeter. And it basically looks like this really weird yellow box with this long extension cord looking thing and this like computer gadget on the end. And what it does is it's actually measuring the levelness or lack thereof of your foundation all the way down to the 10th of an inch.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, 10th of an inch is,
it's tiny. Yeah.
It's what, millimeter,
yeah.
something like. Yeah. So, and we measure that all the way across the house. And then there's this math calculation that we do. And we say, okay, yes, indeed, you have had a movement, but this house is 60 feet, we're say 60 feet from end to end, and your movement is only about 3/4 of 1 inch.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Very small.
You're fine. Yes, you had movement. Yes, there's cracks. But at this point, let's just make sure you have a proper watering program, and we can patch the cracks, get a painter out here.
Sure.
Or if it's excessive, then we can tell you that too, and say, okay, now you're outside of the threshold. You are receiving adverse performance. At this point, we may want to talk to an engineer.
Yeah.
And they'll prescribe a plan of action.
Right.
But of course, that's kind of last
Sure.
resort, right?
Yeah.
But those things are available. But you want to ask when you're hiring a home inspector, because usually your realtor is going to tell you, hey, we've got these 3 numbers, that we like to use, whichever one you want to, call them all and see which one works best with you, right? Because legally they're not supposed to tell you, use this one person.
Yes.
Although if you do, pick Siteguard.
Yes, there you go. Pick Siteguard, always.
But say, pick these 3 numbers. Well, when you're calling them, interview them. How long have you been in business? What kind of qualifications do you have?
Yeah.
What kind of licenses do you carry?
Yeah.
What services do you offer? Can you, I've got a pool back there. Can you inspect the pool? Well, we don't inspect pools, but we have a third-party person we can call and get court. Oh, so that's another appointment that we've got to coordinate, another report from another person and another fee.
Right.
Well, what about your foundation? Well, we got a company we can call.
Yeah.
Okay. Can this one company take care of all your needs?
Right.
In fact, we did one just yesterday. It had thermal imaging, it had swimming pool, had the spa, had the foundation elevation survey. God, what else did it have? And it had all the bells and whistles.
Yes. Yeah.
But you want to ask, can they do these services and like use a wood destroying insect inspection? Most people call it the termite inspection, but we look for carpenter ants, powder post beetles, all the good jazz. Do they offer it? Because that is a separate license.
Yes.
It is not a TREC license.
No.
It's a license through Texas Department of Agriculture. They had to go to school and get that one too, right?
Yeah.
So do they offer it? Well, no, but we have another guy we call. And okay. Do we want to go through that route again?
More cost again. Yeah.
Or yes, we do. Okay. Well, do you charge for that?
Yeah.
Like for us, we just give it as a customer service.
Yeah.
Because we work with a lot of VA clients and
they have to have
VA
it.
Specifically. And it's the weirdest thing with VA. So you are required as a VA home buyer, you are required to have a termite inspection, and you are also required not to pay for it.
Actually, that changed. They can pay for it now. They're allowed to pay for it. Yes. Yeah. It's just changed within the last few years, but they can actually pay for it now.
Because we, in our invoices, we put, that's like, it's like a value, but there's no, like they didn't actually, there's no dollar that they paid for it. Right?
They don't want to have to force somebody else to do it. So they actually made it to where they can pay it.
But no, do they offer that? Are you getting the inspection? Or are you getting the inspection and a report?
Right.
Because those are very different things too.
Yeah.
Because somebody can come out there and give you a verbal, but do you
you
have something in writing?
Yeah, because the lender is going to require it in writing. So
that's right.
Yes,
that's
we're
right.
going to have to have it. What about the HVAC? What are common things that you see with that specifically?
A bunch. Well, it's just because we're in Texas, so it's between 80 and 100 degrees.
Yeah.
9 months out of the year. So we use our air conditioner 9 months out of the year. Well, maybe not quite, but probably 8. Almost always they need serviced because we just don't really service them as much as we should.
Yeah.
Biggest thing is, is like your blower motor inside, your filters, the outside unit, like just it collects debris and dust. So, just like you would change your filter in your car, you want to change the filter in your air conditioning unit too. It's something simple like that, but it's going to help your unit run more efficiently.
Yeah. People are terrible at that, me included, by the way. It's like I have to put it on my calendar on my phone to remind me, and it's going to remind me 100 times before I actually do it.
I always tell everybody, so you write your mortgage check on the first.
Yeah.
Change your filter on the first. And when you write your mortgage check, change your filter.
Yeah.
Or some people now have like the wide 4-inch or 5-inch, filters instead of the 1-inch wide filters. So on those, you're only changing them 2-3 times a year or something, depending on your environmental conditions.
Right.
You can go to Amazon and there's a subscription, right? So like at my house, I have it where it is, I don't say every 4 months
Every
or something,
3 or 4 months, yeah.
that it delivers me a new filter.
Once you get it, just go change it.
That's it.
Yeah,
I don't think
okay,
about
that's
it at
pretty
all.
good. That's
It just
pretty good. I like
delivers,
that.
I just walk upstairs, change it, and that's it.
I like
It's
that.
done.
Okay, I'm probably gonna have to implement that. I'm gonna have to do that one.
But no, otherwise, I would say one of the bigger things with HVAC systems is a few years back we did this conversion from R22 to 410A, and it's just the fuel. So like if you had a car, be leaded versus unleaded, or diesel versus,
I think I remember that.
It's kind of just a fuel difference, right? But because of that, one is way more efficient,
right?
But it's also one is more expensive to maintenance and so on. So if we see R22, we always like to point that out and say, hey, this is something, these are obsolete units. I mean, you still use them, but when you decide to go for a replacement, you're going to be probably going to a 410A unit,
right,
which will actually, in the long run, you'll actually save a little on your energy bills, because they do run more efficient. But that's pretty common on that. Water heaters is another major thing. Generally speaking, you get about 12 years or so off of a water heater. Most builders now, though, do not put in tanked water heaters. They put tankless.
Really?
And I mean, some will, but over the last couple of years, it's really become, I would say, probably a 70-30 split. 70 on the tankless and then 30 on the tanked. Now, if you get further out to the country, you're going to get more tanked units. But tankless, if it's installed correctly, and of course, depending on your water conditions and so on, but you can get 20-25 years out of a tankless unit. Whereas on a tanked, you're getting 12. 15 maybe.
Wow.
Tankless is a little more expensive to install,
but it lasts a lot longer.
But it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
And there's less components because you're not really
not breaking,
holding a reservoir of water,
right? With it and all the fun stuff that comes with that. Yeah.
But as far as, so we see a lot of stuff on the tankless and so on. So, and if there's something that's, if it's performing, then great, but if there's some deficiencies, some of it is just, hey, it's an old tank, so we want to, change the fittings or something at the top, some corrosion or something. But
or the pan, pan's always a problem.
Is there a pan? If it's in a garage, is it elevated 18 inches? Does it have? Oh, it has a pan. It is elevated. But is there a drain line on that pan? Does it go to the exterior? Or like a lot of houses, they will have a pan, but it drains right to the garage floor. Right. And it's like, well, that was okay.
That's probably not where it's supposed to go. I would think. Yeah.
When the house was built, that code was okay, but that was 30 years ago. So, next go around on the water heater, you might want to think about, bringing it up to code.
Well, man, this is a ton. And I think it's great because, it's one of those things like, I have guys that come and talk to me about insurance. I have guys that come and talk to me about roofing. And it's like, it's never, this stuff isn't like sexy and exciting. It's not like the person telling you how to use AI to make your marketing better, but this is the most important stuff about your business. And for every realtor out there that's listening to this, you have to understand that you don't have to be an expert on this stuff, right? You don't have to be, because this is why you guys exist. This is why you have good referral partners for this type of stuff. But you got to have a base of knowledge to be a little bit dangerous. You got to know something about it because you want your clients coming to you as the expert in all things related to real estate and finding out more as much as you can about what is required in inspection, what is going to show up, what are the big six that you need to be aware of, and those items that are important to pay attention to. All of this stuff is going to help your transactions go smoother. And the benefit of the transaction going smoother is that the whole idea of all of this stuff is that when we want to close a loan, we don't want to just close a purchase. We're not just trying to close one. We're trying to close 6 more after that because we want them to refer us to their friends and family because we did a great job.
That's right.
And that's the goal of all this. Just like you as a business owner, you're going to make sure that when you go out there as, as Siteguard, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure, because the $600 or $800 or whatever it is you got on that one, well, that one inspection is great. It helps pay the bills, but that's not the goal, right? The goal is to pick up clients forever because you want them to continue using you, which is why you're always going to give top-notch service, And so that to me encompasses everything when it comes to being a realtor, is that making sure that A, you have great referral partners that are going to take care of your clients the way that you would. And then B, that you also understand a little bit about what each one of them do, because the more you can have a base of knowledge to operate from, the more success you're going to have in your transactions. And the more people are going to walk away with a smile on their face versus feeling like they just got run through the ringer,
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, is there anything, well, first off, I want to tell everybody, where to find you, where you guys are at, how to locate you. There'll be some stuff in the show notes as well for their website. If you go to my webpage for the podcast, you'll find all of Nathan's contact information there, so you guys can reach out to him if you want to use Siteguard here in the DFW area. But aside for that, is there anything that you want to leave everybody with before we go?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah,
you know, it's been
great.
a great time visiting with you. And again, yes, my name is Nathan Ross with Siteguard Inspection Services. You can find us we've got hundreds of Google reviews. You can easily find us on Google, Yelp, all the hashtag SG inspections or sginspectionservices.com. We're on all the social media outlets. So,
yes.
Please check us out. Even if you haven't shopped with us, and used us as an inspection company, but maybe you're out there looking at houses and you just have a question.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not ready to get my inspection yet, but I saw this thing on the house I really like.
Yeah.
Is this cool, or is this a big deal, or what am I looking at here?
Yeah.
I get that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Shoot me a text. I literally, realtors all the time will do that and be like, hey, here's what I'm looking at. Check it out. And, we can kind of converse that way. And they're, oh, okay, great. Buyer loves it. This is the house. We'll be seeing you next week.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But no, we're here to help. We're here to educate. We do have resources. We've got a resources tab on our website. So we just want to help.
Yeah.
Any way we can, whether it's new construction, septic systems, pools, foundations, roofs, commercial. We try to make sure that if it's something in a real estate transaction, then we have the ability to.
Siteguard's got it covered.
We got it covered.
You got it covered. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us today and dumping your brain on us, because there's a lot here, and I encourage you to go back and listen to this again if you need to. Take some notes. Realize every little bit of information you can take from this and add to your repertoire of real estate knowledge is going to help you in the future. So thank you for everybody that stuck around to the end, and I'll be back on Tuesday with another market update, and we will see you then. So everybody have a great day. Nathan, you have a good weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.